Hey guys, welcome back. Lynz Piper-Loomis here with I Am Silent No More. I have my Belgian Mallow on here, so you guys get to hear her eating and hanging out today. She does not like to be separated from me. So uh, I have actually been sitting on whether or not I wanted to talk to you today about some of these things that have been going on. The scripture that I am using is where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is freedom. And because there has been so much mudslinging, because there has been so much going on behind the scenes, I'm actually going to share my own experience with you today. Um, but first, I kind of want to take a step back because I want people to understand that I am still not a victim. I'm still an overcomer. And there has been a lot going on over the last year between death threats, stalking, and harassment, between um, we've had two deaths in the family this year. I was in and out of the hospital for a couple of months. And then there's just been one thing after another. And we just lost someone in our household a couple of weeks ago. Maybe it's been 3 weeks. So there's just been so much. So I haven't been doing a lot of the online stuff that I normally do, but I did want to share some things with you because I feel like one of the things I've told you I would always do is expose things and tell the truth about what's happening. And so, as a result of some of the recent situations, I've been targeted even more, and others have been targeted, but I'm speaking about myself today with more harassment. And it's really important for people to understand that beyond political party, beyond church affiliation, denomination, we are human. But there is a thing about treating, and I was going to pull out some paperwork from when one of the people that trafficked me was plea bargained when I was, a minor, but I totally forgot about it until I brought it up now. But when survivors come forward to speak, when people talk about what they've been through and they partner with different organizations or different people or whatever, there has to be some level of I don't human decency. I don't even know what to say there. And I want to remind you that we should put our trust in God alone and not in man because man will always fail. Um, And so I say all that to say that it it gives me no joy to sit here and share this today. It actually kind of makes me very ill because of what has happened since May. But anyways, on May 9th at approximately, if you want to pull up that resignation post that I brought up, um, May 9th, 7:41 p.m. I tendered my resignation. I said, Dear General Flynn and Mary, who's the executive director of America's Future, I want to thank you for the opportunity of serving with you these last few years. I'm resigning from my position with the Little Flower Advisory Board and the C4. Little Flower Advisory Board is the anti trafficking board within America's Future. It's also called the Project Defend and Protect Our Children. I said it's been an honor to be with you all and to thank you for your sacrifices and your service to this country and to children. I pray God blesses you all and everything moving forward. Very respectfully, Lynz Piper-Loomis. Um, so what ended up happening was I've been there's an employee at America's Future, Mary's daughter, Kristen, that came on the scene late last year. Um, and she is listed on LinkedIn as their research development director or something like that. But anyways, I met her, started, Mary wanted us to work on research together, all of this stuff. And, you know, I was like, cool. And then she started asking me, questions about my journey. And Esther is making a huge ruckus. I'm sorry, guys. But, anyways, so I answered the questions as best as I could. And then there was a conversation that took place earlier this year with Kristen. And it got to a point where I just said, enough is enough. Like, I said, do you need to record this? Do you need to take notes? Because my stories never changed. And then I knew from there, I just didn't really want to have much to do with her because it just was very toxic. So, mission focused on America's future and what we're doing. And so, you know, I've had a really good relationship with the Flynn's. I met them by being, as someone asked me at General Flynn's first public speech, which was at the Supreme Court after the DOJ dropped the charges, to pray over him. And I didn't know them. I prayed over him then. And then I also, I've prayed with Mary. I've prayed over her family, her children. I mean, this is just, we had what I thought was a really great relationship. They endorsed my book in 2022, both her and General Flynn. Um, so, I've never had any issues. Um, and then this whole thing happened. And back in March, I had actually, with my business partner, we have a PI firm that we just opened up this year in South Carolina. And we actually reached out to Mary and said, hey, would you like to have a conversation? And I'm not going to read the text messages because, unlike Mary, I don't leak things out publicly. I think that's very unprofessional, especially when you trust people. And we're supposed to have some level of confidentiality within the board and within the organization. At least I thought we were. So, had this meeting and she said, what is this about? And I'm paraphrasing this. And I was like, services that we like to offer you at no cost, offering vetting, offering different things. So, we get on a phone call in March, and it's my business partner, myself, and Mary. And we didn't know that anyone else was on the phone call, but apparently, finding out later, uh, allegedly, um, Mary's daughter, Kristen, said that she was on this phone call. And so, months later. So, and then according to PMC, Project Milk Carton, um, allegedly they were also present for this. So I don't know how that's possible. But in that phone call, we talked about proprietary information that we would not have shared otherwise. And again, I'm not with um, my business partner's organization, Shepherd's Watch. I'm not on the board. I'm not a volunteer. It's two separate entities. But with Luke 17:2, we are trying to offer, vetting, background checks, and all of that, and no cost. Never did we say it would cost anything. So, anyways, fast forward, we get to May. And so Mary's daughter, Kristen, asked me to contact her immediately. So it was Mother's Day Eve, and so I said, "Well, hey, I've got a short amount of time. I can talk to you." So that was Saturday morning. That conversation was very brief because I told her I had something that I was going to with my daughters for Mother's Day. It was a brunch at our church, but basically, she was talking to me about this phone call from back in March that we had been asked, we'd been asking for money and that all of this stuff. And I was like, no, it would cost us hardly anything. But it was offered at no charge. And I have text message receipts, which again, I'm not going to put those forward because I do believe in confidentiality. I'm not the one that leaked this stuff out. And I'm going to maintain that. But we said before and after that this was at no cost. And so, anyways, she goes off on this and just goes down whatever rabbit trail. And then, um, it just kept coming back to me that I was, trying to ask for money, and we weren't actually. So then I said, "Look, I will call you back this afternoon to resolve this because in my mind I'm thinking larger picture. I don't need toxicity, we don't need drama. The mission is the children, right?" So then I call her back that afternoon because for some reason this was an emergency for them. And for 2 hours and 40 minutes she screamed at me. And some people would say, well, why did you stay on the phone for that long? Well, because again, my biggest point in all of this was that stay focused on the mission, which is the kids, try to stay out of this drama that they're creating, and let's get back to business. But she kept accusing me of being cruel and mean to her mom. She kept saying that I was not a survivor. I'm going to try not to cry. That I had watched other people's stories to build my own, that the children um, that I was impregnated with when I was raped and trafficked, that I had had voluntary abortions. She said she had found messages, which was not true. Um, I didn't think this was going to be this hard today, guys. I'm sorry. Um, I apologized for anything that could have come across to Mary, which was not. I didn't send her anything that was cruel and mean, but I just said, "Look, I'm sorry for that if there was anything," but everything I sent was never, she would say, "Can you keep an eye on this?" Or, whatever. So when someone would be threatening the Flynn family or would be threatening America's future, I would send that over to Mary. And I actually told Kristen, I said, "Well, I didn't," she said she was the gatekeeper for Mary. She said, "I didn't realize," and I said, "I didn't realize that all of these messages had to go through you. We haven't had any team meetings. We haven't had, there's no protocol in place." Um, and I, talked to her about how, you know, this is, I talked to her about faith. I talked to her about how God would operate in this situation. And she's like, "Well, um, I said, it doesn't matter if you're Catholic or if you're Baptist or whatever." And she said, "Well, what are you?" And I said, "I go to a non denominational church." So she goes down this whole rabbit hole of, "You're not a Christian." Basically, every single thing that she could throw at me from Hell's Kitchen sink, she did. And I realized it was a manifestation of something demonic. Um, but, anyways, she also said, "Why didn't you try to escape when you were 4 years old and try to get out?" And then she'd say, "Well, you're not healed." Um, and then she'd say I was ill equipped to be a private investigator, to speak on anti trafficking, to operate in any of the capacities that I'm operating in now. Um, and basically, um, it just was this attack, and she said I was a habitual liar. It was just, it was so abusive and so wrong, and so I'm like, "Why am I even here if they don't trust me, if they don't believe in me, if they don't whatever?" So it got to a point where I finally, I heard the Holy Spirit say inside of me, "You're done." And so, I said, "I'm done." And then I said it out loud, and Kristen's like, "What do you mean you're done? I decide when this is done." And I was like, "No, I'm done." And she's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "Don't worry about it." So I tendered my resignation after that because I was crying over the phone. I really actually lost it. I'm actually starting to shake again. It was dehumanizing. It was retriggering. Um, and it was really tough. So I that's why I resigned. And I ended up texting Mary and I confronted some of these issues. And again, I'm not going to read the text message because I do believe in having some level of confidentiality. I'm not the one that leaked it. But anyways, and she didn't respond to that. She just said, when we talked, you didn't indicate that you were going to be resigning. And then I said, well, this is what happened. No apology, no conversation, nothing. And something the Lord had told me to say in the text was, I don't get between, I wouldn't get between a mother and her daughter. Um, and I didn't know, that that this had allegedly happened to people before me and after me. I didn't know that there was a repeated pattern. I do know that there have been people um, that are no longer that people that even introduced to America's Future. They're no longer involved. Um, why? That's for them to share if they decide they want to share that publicly. But I found out after I resigned, which was pure hell that day. I can't even tell you. Like I know, like what I've shared with you probably doesn't sound upsetting, but when you have lived through what we lived through, and to be on the other side and to be healed and to be on the front lines, and the level of betrayal and deception that took place that day, it was devastating. It was one of the biggest blows I've had, and that's on top of everything else that's been happening for the last 6 months that I haven't talked about publicly. I've shared a little bit. So, um, I resigned, and um, that entire night, I cried. I cried all through the night. I cried into Mother's Day, um, into worship the next day at church in the morning, and then I just praised God. I lifted my hands up to Him, and He broke it all off. You would think that if an employee did this, you would want more information. So, um, I had conversations with individuals. Um, I finished school, my bachelor's and master's. I went to graduation. This happened the week before graduation. And then I went on my sabbatical, and um and then I find out that this is a repeated pattern, um before and after. So I sent an email to um I sent a thread of emails back and forth to General Flynn, Mary, their sister Claire, and two board members. And so um, uh, that was private. I did not post that publicly because, again, at the end of the day, the distraction publicly is not to take away from the mission of the children, but to deal with this behind the scenes if possible. But unfortunately, Mary didn't think that it was a great idea to keep that confidential. So if we can put the next image up, this is Jeremiah Bullfrog 3, who is Jeremy Sinks. He is CEO of Project Milk Carton, and I personally redacted information, although he did not. He posted a screenshot of this email publicly, not the whole thing. I don't know if he's actually posted it. I've blocked him, but he has sent this out in multiple DMs. I received that from um, several people that received it as a DM, who received it as a text message, and I was actually appalled that that was brought out forward. So because it was leaked, I'm going to read this to you. This was on May 21st, 3:32 p.m. Good afternoon. And again, this was sent to Claire, which is General Flynn and Mary Flynn O'Neill's sister. I sent it to and to two board members as well. Good afternoon. I hope this email finds you well. I still find it deeply disturbing. The attack I endured from Kristen, Mother's Day Eve, it came out of nowhere and it was wrong on every level. I invested time as a voice for the voiceless with America's Future for approximately 3 years. I'm not the only survivor that has been attacked by Kristen. I was told I had lied about my story and I had watched other survivor stories to build my own. I was told that I was a habitual liar and I just wanted money from you. And I was asked why I did nothing to escape when I was a victim at 4 years of age. I was also told that I'm not a Christian and that I had treated Mary cruelly and I was mean to her. I was advised it was enough to do anything that I'm doing now and that I'm not healed. I told Kristen I was done after 2 hours and 40 minutes of her screaming at me. Kristen said she was the gate for Mary and that she had overheard a conversation between myself and the redacted person, and Mary. I had found out since my resignation that there were other parties privy to our conversation and text messages. I had sent Mary and text messages I had sent Mary ended up in a third party's hands. Those messages were sent to blank and blank with blank in a threatening manner. Blank also received a rape threat from the same third party and was reported to law enforcement. I thank God that I'm in a good mental state, but that doesn't mean I was not devastated. There was so much more to that whole conversation. I advised Mary in a text a few of the things that took place with Kristen. No conversation was requested and no apology. I don't understand. Was this all I was worth to you only to be thrown away by a screaming person? I said I would never get between a mother and her child. I won't. That's why I resigned. I wrote a book that declares I'm silent no more. By the way, they endorsed that. I was not sure General Flynn and Claire knew everything that took place with me. There were more before me. I forgive Kristen and others for what has happened. I will not let this take rent in my heart or my head. However, it is extremely painful because I trusted you and considered you like family. I feel like I was used, and this is a deep betrayal. I would never treat my girls or my husband this way. I would also like to respectfully ask that you no longer use my name or likeness, intellectual property, or my story in any of your advertising, social media posts, and anything on your website moving forward. Thank you for your time. Very respectfully, Lynz Piper-Loomis. I'm not going to read the rest of the thread. Who knows if those are out or not, but I'm not going to willy-nilly put those out. Um, but I was dumbfounded, completely dumbfounded. If we can pull up the next image, when I found out that this had been leaked. So underneath Jeremiah Bullfrog, who is Jeremy Sinks, I've received multiple reports that representatives of, and he put a snippet of this email. Okay. And then someone shared it. But anyways, this had been shared back last month. Sam Moore says, "Where'd you get that email? You're a fool for posting it. You and Spartan X_Ray are fools." So he's asking, where did you get this? This is where I found out it came from Mary. It had to have, because the board members didn't leak it. I knew General Flynn wouldn't leak it. I knew Claire wouldn't leak it. Can you go to the next one? So he says, this guy is Andrew Fayal. He has actually already put his name out there, so I'm not doxing these guys. He says, "And Sam, I'm going to stop your slimy little tactic right there regarding Mary Flynn O'Neill." So he's saying that right down here, um, that he got this from Mary. So if you're asking whether the executive director of America's Future emailed me, can you put that back up? I'm sorry, I just wanted to read that. Didn't have it memorized. If the executive director emailed me about a serious accusation and asked me whether it was true, and yes, then I found out. I've seen text messages, which I'm not going to share with you, where he says that Mary had sent my text messages over to them, that they'd seen these. So um, naturally, I sent a signal message to two board members, General Flynn and Mary, and I said, "Why did you leak these?" We can come off of that one if you want. I said, "Why did you leak these?" And I was told there was a thumbs down emoji from Mary Flynn O'Neill signaling that she didn't do it. But these guys are saying that they did get it from her. And that's the only way they could have gotten it. Why in the world would any of us who have gone through what we've gone through um, make any of this up? What is in it? And since all of this has happened, um, people have been digging into what has happened and people's um, backgrounds, criminal backgrounds, and it's appalling. So this is my own situation that I wanted to talk about today. Um, I know there's more information I could potentially share with you, but I just I have to speak up because this is wrong on so many levels. Entities, organizations, and people deserve to be treated with respect, especially survivors. And since I resigned, Liz Crokin resigned, Ben Moore resigned. Um, we, me personally, I can't speak for them. I've been inundated with messages from former volunteers, um, other survivors, and people that have stories that are really disheartening. And so this is why I've come forward. I understand that there are news agencies trying to get their story out on this and wanting to know more information. Organizations or um, I guess I would say media outlets that I don't necessarily agree with them on, but they're covering this. And, you know, I'm finding out that allegedly there was um, a dossier built on myself, and I'm just going to speak about myself on this. Um, you can think for yourselves. But it was a fake dossier, and what's interesting is General Flynn had a fake dossier built on him, and it was criminalized, and he was charged wrongfully based on that dossier. And yet, allegedly, that's what happened with us. People were building false information on us. How many others were they doing this to? I don't know. Um, and I don't know if anyone else will step forward. I don't know if anyone else is going to speak publicly about this. Uh, I I think that an apology, a public apology and retraction for what has happened is so important, especially when you leak out an email. There's no way I would have done that. And there's no way those two board members would have done it, or Claire or General Flynn. Um, I don't know Claire very well, but it's just not that's not how she operates. General Flynn is not going to do it because he chalks all this up to just trauma. There was also mentions of alcohol, and people are naturally assuming that the night that this happened, that I was drinking. I was not drinking. I was at home, and this wasn't the night. It was actually the morning. I was getting ready to go to church with my daughters for Mother's Day for a brunch. Um, and I rarely consume alcohol as it is. So this whole thing for what has was been spoken publicly that we're just going to chalk this up to high school drama. Why didn't you work on this behind the scenes? Um, General Flynn said it was, um, challenging. Basically, he was talking about um, me affecting the integrity of the organization and his own image, and that he used to look up to me or think highly of me, or not look up to me but think highly of me. And I'm like, you've got to be kidding me. So what has happened in this situation is criminalizing a survivor of child sex trafficking and taking the side of the offender. This is no different than if you were in human trafficking or you're in another type of abusive situation and you don't take accountability and transparency. No apologies have been made. They just wrote it off and they're moving on. So, I wish them well. I hope that they're successful in whatever they plan to do for themselves. But I want no part of it. Um, and it looks like we were going to be phased out anyways because we were no longer, Mary said that they were building a new strategy and doing something different. So, for me personally, this is not a very long podcast today, but I wanted to share with you myself what happened. Um, Mother's Day is already hard because my mom is in heaven. Um, and so I felt like I had to speak up for other people that couldn't speak up for themselves. And I'm just done with the smearing. I'm done with um, all of the tactics that were done behind the scenes. I don't know what we ever did in any capacity to deserve any of this. So um, I wouldn't. There was a pretty good size attack against Liz. She released the videos of what happened to her. And again, I'm going to stick to my situation. So you can go follow her, but it's being chalked up just to alcohol. But the thing is that the those individuals, Kristen was caught, she was recorded. And there was a third person, Kristen's brother, Mary's son. And so the fact that when they realized they were being recorded, they changed their story. But the other two videos show clear. Well, I mean, they said in one of the videos that they were going to clear the board. And, people think, well, they don't have that type of power. But if they're saying they're going to clear the board, then was that the original plan all along? Was the plan just to use us for 3 years or whatever the time frame was and then move on? So Um, I just it blows my mind, and to think that just just blaming alcohol for the way that someone acts, again, you are criminalizing a victim in this situation and defending the offender. If someone goes off and commits a crime and the other person may have been drinking and they hurt them, you're not going to sit there and not you're not going to sit there and make excuses. At least you shouldn't. So there needs to be some level of accountability here and transparency, and it's preached from that platform constantly, but there is no accountability and transparency. There hasn't been for me. Instead, the stuff has been leaked out and I've been harassed online, and it continues to happen. This is not acceptable behavior. If you're going to fight for our children, you're going to fight for freedom, you're going to fight for America, you're going to fight against child trafficking, then you might want to treat the people who have gone through these things a little bit better. And if you're going to preach something, you might want to look in the mirror and actually take accountability and responsibility for your own actions. Own it. I always shared in my seminars, you have to own your healing. You have to own your choices. You have to own your reactions. I've raised my kids like you can be mad, but if you act out in the anger, then you're responsible for that. I don't make you act that way. You choose to. And this is when they were little, they're adults now. So people have to be accountable. So this is not acceptable by any means. I would not have ever leaked information out to a third party, regardless. But hey, if you're going to do it yourself, then I guess it's out there. So that's on you. Um, so not only did we not take accountability and transparency for what happened, but we're going to further dehumanize, traumatize, and try to destroy um, my life, which you know is is a horrible thing to do by enabling people um, who speak to women and speak horribly online about women and certain women anyways. You're going to empower them to treat us, to harass us and treat us like garbage. It just blows my mind. Apparently that's acceptable behavior. So I'm just telling you guys, make sure that when you are volunteering or you're getting involved with anyone, do your due diligence, use discernment. I literally, this was devastating for me. Uh, I asked God, did I hear from you right? Should I have, you know, been a part of all of this? Was this a waste? And he was like, no, I sent you in as a representation of me and you warned them. You know, and it was like, you can't serve two people. You can't serve God and the devil. You can't serve God and mammon. You can only serve one. And so that's what happened. And I think it sucks. But that's my own experience. And I can't say that it was all a waste and I regret every moment, but I feel like it was a fire and the fire refines us and it shows us like I let my guard down and I wish I never would have done that. That um that was hard. But anyways, I I feel like I'm just going to keep going. So I'm going to let you guys go today. I want to thank you for listening, and I know I've received a lot of support from you guys. Listen, I'm not I'm not going to say anything else, but I hope that those that are in the know of what has been happening will continue to take a stand. I will tell you there are people behind the scenes that took a stand for me and for others. And I want to say thank you. And I'm not going to name them. I'm not going to give out their information. I'm not going to share emails or any of that because some of these people, the good ones, are my friends and I consider them family. And I'm very thankful for them for what they've said and what they've done and for what they've gone through as a result of what of speaking up for us. Thank you. I know it has not been easy. Um, but anyways, this is straight from me, and you've seen these public um, snapshots. I didn't put those out; they were sent out to other people. So thank you again. Um, I will be making some more announcements a little bit later. I've got something coming up. If you're here or near South Carolina this Friday, I will be actually talking about satanic ritual abuse, healing scriptures surrounding the healing process, what goes on inside with our soul and our spirit and our body. So if you are near the area you want to come in, it'll be this Friday at my church at 7 p.m. And I would love to see you there. For those of you that are asking, what are my next steps? Well, there is a lot going on. I just started my PhD this summer. So I'm just focused on that and my family. We just lost someone in our household um, within the last 3 weeks. So we're still trying to get through all of that. And I'm trying to deal with all this other stuff that you guys are seeing online. The attacks have been nonstop. So um, if you can just give me grace, I'm going to continue the podcast and continue some other things. But if you can just give me grace right now, um, that would be awesome. And thank you again. And if you want to stay in touch, you can go to my website, www.lynzpiperloomis.com without the hyphen. You get a book there. You can stay in touch. And when I start putting the newsletters out, you can join me there. If you're interested in having me come speak at your church, or um, you can go to my website and fill out the contact form, and I will be happy to contact you back and figure out if it's a good fit. Thank you so much, guys, and have a good